Hey guys, Mike Young with Noble Warriors here. Time for Manhood in the Media. And again, I have two articles for you that are kind of closely related and near to my heart in both cases, quite honestly. So, a New York Times article that came out on the 13th of July, and the title of it is Mom, Dad, I Want to Be a Welder. And one of the conversations that I have often with young people is about the value of the trades. And we've talked about work here before. As a matter of fact, it's work week at Noble Warriors. We've been talking about the third point of the better man definition for real manhood, which is to excel at God's work. And we live in this culture where so many kids are told that the only way for you to go in terms of your future, to make a good future for yourself, is to go to college. And I'm just watching more and more kids struggle with, is that the right move for me? Should I do that? I'm watching young adults they're just saddled with student loan debt, and then they come out with degrees that are not immediately applicable. And so there's a good bit of struggle there. And so what I love the trades. As a matter of fact, I grew up in a blue collar family surrounded by folks. Now, I had the privilege to go to college. And so I don't want to downplay that option, but I love the trades. I love the privilege that I had to learn how to work with my hands myself. Man, when you can walk off a job at the end of the day and look back and say, I did that, I was part of raising those walls and putting that up or installing that air conditioning unit and the house is now cool. Man, when you can walk away from a job and see what you've done, there is incredible satisfaction for that. And that just doesn't happen when I'm sitting in front of my computer with two monitors on the wall and grinding through Bible verses and preparing to coach churches. There's a different feel to this, and neither one is better than the other. But what we have done is we've increased the value of one so much in our minds that we've devalued the other, and we've said this is not an advisable pathway. But I want to encourage you, man. This article. There's a young lady who has become a welder. There are a couple of young guys who have gone into the trades. They're doing HVAC work. One young guy is 24 years old. He's already started his own company. He's making good money. He's learning how to run a business. And so I just love all of this. There's another story about a guy who went to trade school, paid $25,000 for that, learned and got most of that covered with state grants that he does not have to pay back, and became a guy who repairs wind turbine devices or something. I don't remember exactly all of it, but the big idea is there is great opportunity here. Now, what I will say, I have a lot of kids who say to me, young people who say, I really don't want to go to school. I really don't like school. Well, it's okay to not like school, but you can't dislike learning. And so here's the deal. If you are going to do whatever you do, I mean, if you're going to be an accountant, you have to take professional training courses. You have to constantly improve your understanding of your discipline. If you're going to be a nurse, you have to take continuing professional education stuff. If you're going to be a mechanic, you have to keep learning how to do mechanic stuff. You're going to be a plumber, you're going to be an HVAC guy, you're going to be a truck driver. You have to you have to be a lifelong learner regardless of where you are. So you may not like school in the traditional sense, but you can't not like learning. So if you're a young person listening to this, you gotta love learning and stay in that stay in that lane. But I just love the idea of young people choosing to go into the trades. They're avoiding a lot of the challenges of student loan debt and that sort of thing, and just having a great experience with some sense of purpose and accomplishment. Now, flip side of that, I follow a ministry organization. It's not all Christian, but often has a Christian slant. But the Institute for Family Studies, and this article came out on June 23rd. The title is "Father's Hope and Working Class Men's Discontent." Now, so there is a challenge to this, and the truth is that all the studies that they do, secular and otherwise, point to the fact that working class men, what I would call often blue collar men, are struggling in our culture at times. And a lot of that discontent, this whole article is looking back at research and saying that much of that discontent comes not so much from their station in life, but their family of origin. And so we have seen, and this talks about this, we've seen a degradation of marriage, especially in the working class of our culture for the last 40 years. We've seen lots of jobs go away. We've seen lots of challenge there. And I think we're getting ready to see an upswing in that. But part of what this article talks about is just over and over again, it mentions the impact of fathers on instilling hope in their children. And that cuts across the grain, whether you're white collar, blue collar, working class, academic. Man, the impact of fathers is critical. And so I just appreciate so much of what this article talks about. Here's the top line, the title of a graph: Fathers Matter for Hope in Working Class Men. And so the relationship with the father is 32% of the gap between hope in working class and white collar workers. And so the impact of a dad's relationship with his kids, specifically with his sons, is absolutely huge. Here are a couple of quotes from the very end of this article. It says, "The seeds of hope are likely planted early in life, nurtured within the family environment. For these young men, the relationship with their father emerges as arguably the single most influential factor shaping their sense of hope." Man, my goodness, guys, if you're a dad or you're a future dad, think about how important it is for your posture, your sense of identity and purpose, your relationship with the Lord even, to shape the perception of hope for your children. What are you hoping in for them? Or what are you hoping for them? What are you hoping with them? How are you expressing your hope in your own future? And so that's such a big deal. Then another line says, taken together, the findings suggest that family of origin and the father relationship in particular plays an important role in transmitting or failing to transmit the psychological foundations of hope and meaningful life. Again, not necessarily a faith-based study, but it sure does point to the value that the Lord himself places on the role of fathers, himself calling himself Father. And so God teaches us how to be good fathers, and that's what I want to do. So how do these two articles fit together? Well, so one of the things that I see in this is many of the young people that they talk to who were interested in choosing the trades, who were interested in going into what we would call blue collar or working class environment, part of what they were up against was not just their high school counselors who were trying to get them to go to college, but it's their parents who would feel like they had failed if their kids didn't go to college and didn't get a 4-year education or degree. And so I would just say to you, dads and moms, but dads in particular, hey, walk through these questions with your kids and encourage them. Encourage them to find a place where they can thrive, where they can put their particular wiring and skills and gifting and their personalities to work in a way that is honorable, is a way that can glorify the Lord and advance the kingdom. Man, you could have a huge impact in an automotive environment or in a welding environment. We need to take Christ into every one of these working environments. And dads, you have a huge impact on how you talk about the future of your sons and daughters and what your hope for them looks like. You know, our hope should be that we want to see them flourish. And so that's way more than having a 4-year degree. So I hope that you would have a posture that you want to see your kids find the space and the place in the working world, the career world, if God calls them there, to do whatever he has designed for them, and encourage them to be lifelong learners.